Have you ever carried a secret so heavy that it felt like it was stitched into every breath you took, every step you made, every glance you gave to the person you loved most in this world? A secret that, if revealed, could either shatter everything or unlock a truth you never dared to believe you could live. I have. And what I'm about to confess isn't a fantasy, isn't a joke, and isn't something I ever thought I would dare put into words. My name doesn't matter right now. What matters is that I am a husband. I am married to a woman who I adore more than life itself. And for the last 2 years, I've been living in our home not as her husband, not as the man she once knew me to be, but as her maid. Yes, her maid. Her loyal, silent, hidden, feminine reflection in the very place that once defined my masculinity. And this is how it happened. It started small, like most secrets do. At first, it was just a joke, a passing thought. My wife is a strong, confident, radiant woman, and she carries the kind of presence that naturally makes people bend to her rhythm. I always admired her strength, but I also felt something else, something quieter, something I buried so deep I pretended it didn't exist. It was the pull of submission, of service, of wanting to not stand taller than her, but instead exist at her side in a softer way. The first time it surfaced was after a long day of work. I came home exhausted, my tie loose, my shirt untucked, and I found her tidying the kitchen alone. Something inside me cracked. I wanted, desperately, to take her burden. So I offered. "Let me clean," I said. She laughed. "Since when do you clean?" And she was right, I never had. But that night I stayed up scrubbing every counter until the house smelled like lemon and soap, and when she saw it, she smiled at me like I had given her the world. That smile lit a fuse in me I didn't know existed. From there, the fuse burned quietly, secretly, but never went out. I began doing little chores before she could, sneaking laundry loads, ironing her blouses. At first she teased me, then she grew used to it, and eventually she expected it. And strangely, I didn't resent it. I craved it. But my secret didn't stop there. No, because soon I realized it wasn't just the tasks that pulled me, and it was how I did them. The rhythm, the motions, the quiet satisfaction of folding, dusting, polishing. It didn't feel right to do it in my shirts and trousers. It felt incomplete. So one night, while she was asleep, I slipped into one of her aprons. Just an apron. Just fabric. But when I tied those strings behind my back, I felt like I had stepped into a role that had been waiting for me all along. I looked in the mirror, and for the first time, the reflection didn't look wrong. It looked terrifyingly right. And yet, I couldn't tell her. How could I? What husband tells his wife he longs to serve her not as her equal, but as her maid? Days turned into weeks, and my secret grew. I would wait until she left the house, and then dress quietly in her spare dresses, simple ones she rarely wore, and I would move through the rooms not as her husband, but as her unseen helper. I would dust shelves, polish mirrors, sweep the floor, all while practicing silence, grace, and care. And each time I heard her footsteps return, I would rush to change back, my heart hammering as though I had committed a crime. And maybe I had, because deception is always a crime when it builds walls between two hearts that promised honesty. But secrets have a way of escaping, don't they? Mine escaped one rainy afternoon when she came home earlier than expected. I didn't hear the door open, didn't hear her footsteps on the stairs. I was in the guest room, wearing a simple black skirt and blouse, hair tied back in one of her headbands, dusting the window ledge when she spoke. Just one word. My name. I froze. The feathered duster slipped from my hand, and when I turned, there she was. My wife, staring at me. No laughter. No smile. Just silence so sharp I thought it would cut me in half. I tried to speak, but no sound came out. She stepped closer, eyes locked on me, and in that moment I was sure everything was over. Our marriage. Our love. My life as I knew it. But instead of shouting, instead of storming out, she whispered, "Why?" That single word broke me. Tears came before words, but eventually I confessed. Everything. The cleaning, the clothes, the apron, the feeling of rightness I couldn't deny. I told her I wasn't trying to mock her or deceive her, but that something inside me had awakened, something I couldn't cage anymore. I expected disgust, anger, rejection, but what I got was something else entirely. She listened, quietly, patiently, and then she said, "If this is who you are, then I need to see it. Not the secret,
Not the shame.
the truth." From that day, everything changed.
Slowly.
Carefully.
Painfully at times.
She didn't immediately accept it. She questioned me, tested me, doubted me. And honestly,
So did I.
but little by little, she let me live that truth openly. She bought me an actual uniform, a simple maid dress, black with white trim, modest but unmistakable. The first time she handed it to me, my hands trembled. "If you're going to do this," she said, "do it fully." And when I put it on in front of her, I expected to feel humiliation. Instead, I felt seen. Living as her maid became our new rhythm. She guided me, corrected me, sometimes even scolded me when I slipped, but always with a strange tenderness. I was no longer just her husband, I was her helper, her shadow, her maid. And while the outside world still saw me as her spouse, inside our home, my role had shifted into something I never imagined I would embrace so fully. It wasn't easy. There were days I hated myself, days I feared what others would say if they ever found out. There were arguments, tears, nights when I almost gave it up. But each time, she reminded me of one thing: that truth, no matter how unconventional, is stronger than lies. Now, 2 years later, I live this life openly with her. Not publicly, we still keep it between us, but honestly, our love hasn't faded. If anything, it's deepened. Because she knows the real me, the hidden me, the me I never thought I could reveal. And every time I kneel to scrub the floor, or lay out her clothes for the day, or pour her tea while wearing the uniform that once terrified me, I don't feel shame anymore. I feel freedom. This is my secret, my truth. My life as a husband who lives as his wife's maid. And if you're still watching, still listening, wondering how I could ever confess something so strange, so vulnerable, so raw, maybe the answer is this: because hiding was killing me. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't standing tall, it's bowing, serving, and finally being seen for who you are. But don't think for a second that acceptance came like a warm blanket wrapping around me. No, acceptance was jagged, uneven, filled with questions that neither of us knew how to answer. That first week after my wife discovered me, the house was drenched in silence. She went about her day, working, cooking, talking on the phone with friends, but between us there was a pause, like we were both waiting for the other to speak first. And every time I caught her looking at me, I wondered, was she regretting everything? Was she planning to leave? Would she ever see me the same way again? I thought about confessing that I would stop, that I would pack the apron away and never bring it up again, but I couldn't force the words. Because to deny it would have been another lie, another mask, and I couldn't go back to living half alive. Then, on the 6th day, she broke the silence. We were eating dinner, she'd cooked pasta, something quick because she was exhausted, and halfway through the meal she put her fork down and asked me, "Do you really want this life? Or is this just a phase?" My throat tightened. I told her the truth, that I didn't know what to call it. All I knew was that when I put on the apron, when I cleaned and served and slipped into that role, something in me felt whole. "Whole," she repeated, rolling the word around like she was tasting it. And then she said, "Then let me see that wholeness. Don't hide it. Let me see." That night, for the first time, I dressed in front of her without shame. My hands shook as I buttoned the blouse, as I smoothed down the skirt, as I tied my hair back the way she did sometimes. I kept expecting her to laugh, or to walk out, or to scold me for mocking her femininity. But she didn't. She just watched. Her eyes were sharp, calculating, not unkind, but not indulgent either. And finally, she nodded. "If you're going to live this truth," she said, "then you'll live it with discipline. No more sneaking, no more pretending. If you're my maid, you'll be my maid properly." Her words shook me. They weren't soft, they weren't indulgent, they were commanding. And yet, they lit something in me I didn't know I needed. Permission, structure, direction. That was the moment my secret life became real. She handed me the black dress I mentioned before, with its white trim and apron, modest but unmistakable.
"This is yours now," she said.
"But you'll wear it when I say how I say. Do you understand?" I nodded, heart hammering, voice trembling as I whispered, "Yes." The first weeks were a storm. Some days she embraced it, letting me serve her tea, prepare her clothes, tidy the house while she watched with curious eyes. Other days she snapped, frustrated, demanding to know if she'd lost her husband forever. And I stumbled, faltered, sometimes cried alone in the bathroom, wondering if I had ruined everything. But every time I thought it was over, every time I thought she would give up on me, she surprised me.
She stayed.
She questioned me, tested me, but she stayed. One evening stands out like a scar and a blessing both. I had been dusting the living room when she came in, tired from work, and snapped at me without warning. "Do you even love me anymore? Or do you just love this costume?" Her voice cut deep. I dropped the duster, spun around, and all the tears I had been holding back poured out. I fell to my knees right there on the carpet and begged her to believe me. I told her I loved her more than anything, that this wasn't about replacing her, but about becoming the truest version of myself beside her. I told her that every dish I scrubbed, every floor I polished, every tea I poured was a prayer of gratitude for her, not a rejection. She stared at me, silent, and for a moment I thought she would walk away. Instead, she came closer, knelt beside me, and for the first time since it all began, she held me while I cried. That was the night she began to see that my truth wasn't her enemy. It was somehow a bridge. From then on, her attitude shifted. She stopped treating it like a phase to test and began treating it like a role to shape. She gave me tasks, schedules, even little critiques on how I carried myself. She taught me how to set a table the way she liked, how to iron her blouses perfectly, how to arrange the pillows so the living room felt welcoming. It wasn't just housework anymore, it was devotion, an act of love. And slowly, painfully, beautifully, our marriage found a new rhythm. But don't think it was smooth. Secrets have a way of clawing for daylight, and ours nearly did more than once. Like the afternoon when her sister visited unannounced. I was in full uniform, apron tied, hair pulled back, wiping down the shelves when the doorbell rang. Panic shot through me. My wife rushed to the door, whispering for me to hide, but there was no time. Her sister stepped inside and froze, eyes landing on me instantly. My heart nearly stopped. I mumbled something about being help and scurried into the kitchen, cheeks burning, hands trembling. Later that night, I begged my wife to tell me what her sister said. She just shook her head and whispered, "She thinks I hired a maid." I didn't correct her. Relief washed over me, but so did fear, because one slip could destroy everything. And yet, with each close call, with each tearful night and tentative morning, I grew stronger. The shame lessened, the fear softened, and the strange truth is this: the more I lived as her maid, the more I became her partner. Not in the traditional sense, not in the way the world expects, but in a way that was uniquely ours. Because she saw me, not just the husband, not just the maid, but the whole me. And that's where the story stands today. 2 years later, I still live in that role. Some days I am her husband, arm around her shoulder, laughing over dinner. Other days I am her maid, apron tied, serving her tea with quiet grace. And somehow, impossibly, beautifully, we have found balance in that truth. There's one thing nobody tells you about living a life built on secrets. It isn't the big moments that break you. It's the little ones. The doorbell you don't expect. The glance from a neighbor that lingers too long. The sound of footsteps on the stairs when you thought you were alone. Every second of my days became a balancing act between truth and disguise, between the maid I had become and the husband I still was in the eyes of the world. And sometimes that balance cracked. I remember one morning when the sun was streaming through the curtains and my wife asked me to bring her breakfast in bed. I carried the tray carefully, wearing the uniform she had given me, apron tied neatly at the waist, hair pinned back. The look on her face when I placed the tray before her was soft, almost tender. But then the phone rang. It was her mother. She picked up, chatted for a moment, and without thinking said, "Oh, he's just serving me breakfast right now." My heart froze. Her mother laughed over the line, asked what I had made, and my wife answered easily, covering the truth without missing a beat. When she hung up, I looked at her, trembling. What if she found out? I asked. She just smiled, a wry little smile, and said, "Then we tell her a version she could accept." But that's the thing, I didn't want a version. I wanted to be known. Yet the world outside our walls wasn't ready for my truth. That tug-of-war between secrecy and honesty weighed heavier with every passing month. And it all came to a head the day my best friend decided to surprise me. It was a Saturday. I was polishing the dining table, dressed neatly in the maid's uniform, when the doorbell rang. I thought it was a delivery, so without hesitation I opened the door, and there he was. My oldest friend, standing on the porch with a grin. The grin slipped the moment his eyes landed on me. For a split second, the world froze. My breath caught in my throat. He looked me up and down, confusion flooding his face. Is your husband home?" he asked, thinking he was speaking to some employee. My heart pounded so loudly, I thought he'd hear it. And in that instant, my wife appeared behind me, sliding her hand onto my shoulder with calm precision. "He's busy right now," she said smoothly. "Would you like me to pass on a message?" My friend blinked, stammered, then muttered something about coming back later.
He left.
I closed the door and collapsed against it, shaking so hard I could barely breathe. My wife knelt beside me and whispered, "See, we can survive anything as long as we stay aligned." I wanted to believe her, but deep inside, I knew the walls were closing in. The pressure between us grew. Some nights, she questioned if I was hiding behind this role to avoid responsibilities as her husband. Some nights, I feared she would fall out of love with me altogether. We fought harder than we ever had before. There was one night in particular when she shouted, "I married a man, not a maid."
Her words cut me like knives.
I tore off the uniform, flung it across the room, and swore I would burn it. Tears blurred my vision as I screamed back, "I don't know how to stop. I don't know how to go back to who I was." The silence after that fight was suffocating. She left the house for hours, and I sat on the floor, clutching the discarded dress, wondering if I had destroyed the only love I had ever known. When she finally came home, I expected her to tell me it was over. Instead, she sat down beside me, took my trembling hands in hers, and whispered, "Then maybe the problem isn't who you are. Maybe the problem is that I don't know how to love you in this form yet. But I want to try, if you'll let me." That was the turning point. From then on, it wasn't just about me living my secret, it was about us creating a new truth together. We set boundaries, rules, rituals. Some days I would be her maid, apron tied, hair neat, serving with quiet devotion. Other days I would be her husband, her equal, her partner in the way the world recognized. And slowly, we found a rhythm that worked. A rhythm built not on shame or secrecy, but on choice and trust. But life has a cruel way of testing the truths you cling to. That test came one evening when neighbors dropped by unexpectedly. We were both at home, I was in uniform, dusting the shelves when the knock came. Panic shot through me, but before I could move, my wife opened the door. There they were, smiling, holding a plate of food they had brought to share. Their eyes flicked to me instantly, and for a heartbeat, I thought the world was ending. Then my wife, without missing a beat, said, "This is our maid. She's been helping us while we've both been busy." The neighbors nodded politely, handed over the food, and left soon after. When the door shut, I turned to my wife, my face burning with shame. "Is that what I am to you? Just a maid?" I asked, voice breaking. She looked at me, her expression unreadable, and then said softly, "No, you're my husband, but the world doesn't need to know everything. Some truths belong only to us." I didn't know whether to feel comforted or crushed. But as the days went by, I realized she was right. Not every part of our lives needed to be displayed. Some parts could remain sacred, hidden, safe within the walls of our home. And slowly, I stopped fearing discovery. I began embracing the life we had built, strange, unconventional, but ours. 2 years have passed since the day she first caught me in that apron. And today, as I stand here confessing to you, I can say this without hesitation. I am a husband, yes. But I am also her maid. And I am no longer ashamed. Because this life, this dual existence, has taught me something I never understood before. That courage isn't about standing tall for the world, it's about kneeling humbly in front of the person you love, offering your truest self, and trusting that they'll accept it. And mine did.
So here I am.
Living in a secret that is no longer a prison, but a kind of freedom. A secret that feels less like hiding and more like home. And maybe, just maybe, if you're still listening, you'll understand that the strangest truths can sometimes be the most beautiful. As the months rolled on, the secret I once carried like a burden became the rhythm of my days. Every morning I would rise before her, slip quietly into the uniform that had once terrified me, and prepare the house so she could wake in peace. The sound of the kettle boiling, the scent of freshly pressed clothes, the sunlight pouring onto polished floors, it all became a kind of silent love letter I wrote to her through my actions. And though the outside world saw nothing unusual in our marriage, within these walls a quiet transformation was unfolding. Yet there were still moments when the fear of exposure clawed at me. One of the hardest trials came when her parents announced they were coming to stay with us for a week. I nearly fainted when she told me. How could I possibly live this truth under their noses? My wife studied my panic and said, calm but firm, "For that week, you will be my husband. The uniform stays hidden." I nodded, relieved yet aching, because by then the uniform wasn't just clothing, it was part of me. Hiding it felt like erasing half my soul. The first few days went smoothly. I dressed in plain jeans and shirts, played the role of the dutiful son-in-law, laughed at her father's jokes, helped carry luggage. But the pressure built like a storm. Every night, when they went to bed, I would find myself staring at the closet where the uniform hung, my hands itching to put it on, my body restless with the need to return to that truth. One night, the ache became unbearable. I waited until the house was silent, then slipped into the black dress and apron, just for a few minutes, just to breathe. I tiptoed into the kitchen, polished the counters, set out teacups for the morning. It felt like reclaiming a part of myself that had been suffocating. But fate is cruel. As I was finishing, her mother walked in. She had woken for a glass of water. Her eyes widened as she froze in the doorway, staring at me in shock. My blood turned to ice. For a second, neither of us moved. Then my wife appeared, rushing into the kitchen, placing herself between us. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. Her mother frowned, confusion clouding her face. My wife took the tray from my trembling hands and, with a smile sharper than steel, added, "He lost a bet. I told him he had to serve me like this for a week." Her mother blinked, then laughed awkwardly, shaking her head as though it were some harmless joke. She took her glass of water and shuffled back to bed. When the door closed, I collapsed against a counter, shaking uncontrollably. "She knows," I whispered. My wife cupped my face, her eyes fierce.
No.
"She suspects nothing. But you need to be careful. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about us. If you fall, we both fall." Those words branded themselves into me. From that night forward, I understood the stakes more clearly than ever. And yet, even with the risks, something beautiful was happening between us. Our marriage, which had once been drifting into routine, found new breath in this strange arrangement. She began to trust me with more of herself, not just the chores but her vulnerabilities. She would come home after a long day, collapse onto the couch and sigh, "Take care of me." And I would. I'd bring her tea, massage her hands, listen to her frustrations. In those moments, I realized this wasn't about servitude, it was about devotion. The maid's role gave me a way to love her more deeply than I ever had as a husband bound by pride. But not every day was tender. Some days, she tested me in ways that left me trembling. She would deliberately invite friends over and instruct me to stay out of sight, ready to serve at a moment's notice. I would hover in the kitchen, heart pounding, waiting for the sound of her call. When it came, I would step out always in plain clothes, never the uniform, carrying a tray of drinks, silent and precise. Her friends would nod politely, never suspecting the truth. After they left, she would study me with a strange smile, half proud, half mischievous. "You did well," she would say. And even though my nerves were frayed, a deep warmth filled me, because in her eyes, I wasn't failing, I was proving myself. Still, the greatest test came not from strangers, but from myself. One night, I caught my reflection in the mirror while wearing the uniform. For the first time, I didn't just see a husband playing dress-up or a maid filling a role. I saw someone whole, someone I recognized. And the realization scared me more than anything. Was this who I truly was? Was the husband she married slipping away, being replaced by someone else entirely? I confessed these fears to her. She listened quietly, then took my hand and said, "You are both, my husband and my maid, and that's what makes you mine." Her words melted the knot of fear in my chest. For the first time, I believed I didn't have to choose between halves of myself. I could be both. I could be whole. Now, as I sit here and tell you this, 2 years after the day my secret was first exposed, I realize the journey hasn't just been about cross-dressing or chores or even the roles we play in marriage. It's been about truth, about courage, about love strong enough to bend without breaking. The apron I wear is no longer a chain, it's a symbol of the risks I took, the honesty I embraced, and the partner who chose to walk beside me even when the path grew strange. So when you look at me and wonder how a husband could ever live as his wife's maid, know this. It isn't about weakness. It isn't about shame. It's about finding the courage to say, "This is who I am," and trusting the person you love to still see you, still hold you, still choose you. That is the secret I carry. That is the life I live. And it is, against all odds, a life filled with freedom.